How's it going? Adam Drake here, and today we're going to talk about nitro content and tuning your engine with lower nitro content fuel. So this isn't really something that's a concern here in the US. Now, this may become a concern down the road, but for right now, pretty much everyone in the US uses 30% nitro for off-road. So some guys may run 25 in buggy, 30 in truck, but for the most part, the majority of the people use 30% nitro, mainly because our tracks demand a lot of power. The higher nitro content will make the engine a little bit more responsive. It'll give it more low-end power and also run a little bit cooler. But in Europe and in some countries, I believe maybe even in like Asia and Australia, they're cracking down and changing the limit for nitro content. So in some countries, it's already 25% is the maximum you can run. And in 2023, in some of those countries, they're going to reduce it again to 16% is the maximum nitro content you can run. So I've gotten a number of emails asking what's going to need a change? Our engine's going to need a change. What's going to have to happen to be able to still have enough power when using a lower nitro content fuel. So with some engines, you may need to make bigger changes, because if an engine is already kind of on the lower end of the power spectrum, you may need to make bigger changes, bigger strides. But with the OS stuff, normally we have more than enough power, and if anything, we're trying to kind of fine tune and get the proper delivery of power. So it's going to be much easier with OS engines, especially if it's like the 82 or the Ronda Edition engines. Both of those engines are super powerful, very smooth and linear, but also a lot of overall power. So it's not really a big concern. If you're forced to where you have to run a lower nitro content, there's basically three things that you can adjust to kind of keep the same power band, but increase the amount of power with the 82 and the Ronda Edition engine, or any OS engine for that matter. So the first thing that I would recommend doing, which is kind of just the simplest and easiest thing to change, would be switching to a larger Venturi. Basically just giving the engine a bit more air. It's going to give you a little bit broader tuning window, a little bit easier to tune, and a little bit more overall power. Now, when doing that though, you may lose a little bit of kind of low-end response. Even though you're going to have more power, it could possibly take away a little bit of the response of the engine. So to get that back, you would then just remove the cooling head, take off the head button, and with the 82 and the Ronda Edition engine, there's 3 head shims. So there's 1 aluminum and 2 copper head shims. You would remove one of the copper 0.1 millimeter head shims, put the head button back on, reinstall the cooling head. So you're lowering the deck height, you're increasing overall compression, and that's going to increase power. So it's going to increase overall power basically everywhere. And you just have to remember, if you end up then going to an event where you can switch back from 16% and now you're going to run 30%, most likely you're going to want to put that head shim back. It's okay, it's a safe head clearance if you remove the 1 copper head shim with the higher nitro content, but just something to remember. The next thing, or the third thing, the final thing that I would recommend possibly adjusting would be your clutch setting. So again, the lower nitro content, it is going to take away overall power, but it's mainly going to soften the low end power. And it's going to make it feel like you have kind of a heavier clutch or a softer clutch. So the third thing that I would recommend is possibly going to a little bit more aggressive clutch, or maybe going to, like if you're running, say, 2.95 and two 1.0 clutch springs, maybe going to all four 1.0 clutch springs. So allowing the engine to kind of build a little bit more RPM or rev before the clutch engages is going to help with bottom end. But I would first, if you have to run lower nitro content, don't make all these changes until you actually need more power. Because again, with the OS engines, in most conditions, we have more than enough power or more power than what we need. And I would first just try running the engine with your standard Venturi clutch and head shimming. But if you need additional power, I would try those things individually. Or again, if you need a lot of power, maybe you need to make all three of those changes. So clutch, Venturi, and head shim, and you should be good to go with running lower nitro content fuel